April 13, year 1919. Hundreds of unarmed and ordinary men and women had assembled at this park in the heart of Amritsar. Crowd composing the Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs of the city began to swell by the day on the occasion of Baisakhi, one of Punjab's major festivals. Jallianwala Bagh, a barren land nestled between the old city of Amritsar and alleys leading to the city, has always been the spot to rest for the common public, but that day was different.
Large number of people who had assembled in Jallianwala Bagh. Some of them, of course, were those who had participated in the earlier agitations, but a large number were those who had come from adjoining villages, who had no knowledge what has happened in Amritsar on the 10th of April. They had no knowledge about the prohibitory orders. They had come just because it was Baisakhi. They normally come to Amritsar to visit Golden Temple. Then there was one cattle fair also. Those people also come after the cattle fair they visit Golden Temple. And there was a normal tradition to relax in Jallianwala Bagh.
That day, this public park was also the site for protest against the detention and deportation of two outstanding leaders of the Indian National Congress, Dr. Satyapal and Dr. Saifuddin Kitchlew.
They were going to actually called by Miles Irving, the Deed and Deputy Commissioner of Amritsar. They went there to meet him and they were arrested and sent to Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. And due to that, people actually became agitated. And while coming back, they were actually blocked near that there is a Bhandari bridge. There actually Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose statue is there nowadays, and people were blocked from going towards district court to meet the deputy commissioner, and firing took place.
The two were among the national leaders opposing the Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act of 1919, popularly known as the Rowlatt Act, passed by the British government, giving its police force greater power to muzzle the voice of Indians. Among several of its draconian provisions, it allowed the British police officers to indefinitely detain or even arrest any Indian without any judicial review. The law had effectively authorized the government to imprison anyone without trial for 2 years who they thought were plotting against the British.
Because Defence of India Act was going to end. So they wanted a similar kind of act. That's how they brought these two bills called the Rowlatt bills, and they were going to do the trial of these political prisoners under special tribunals. And then there was detention for 2 years without trial, and there was no appeal for them. They could not appeal to a higher court, though the second bill was not passed. And in the second bill, it was even the possession of a seditious literature could be a reason for arrest.
Passed on the recommendation of a committee headed by British Judge Sidney Arthur Rowlatt, the law was specially enacted to counter the freedom movement.
My grandfather, Dr. S.C. Mukherjee, he came here. He was actually deputed by Madan Mohan Malviji in the year 1919 to survey the site of the session which was actually going to be held in that year in Amritsar. So he came here specially for that purpose. In the meantime, this meeting was also called against Rowlatt Act. So he was attending this meeting on the 13th of April, but luckily escaped.
Little did the unarmed and peaceful assembly knew that the contingent of British troops armed with 303 Lee Enfield rifles and thousands of rounds of ammunition, led by Colonel Reginald Dyer, had their intentions set as they marched inside Jallianwala from this very lane.
On 12th, he took round of the city, and in the evening of the 12th, he framed certain he calls prohibitory orders that there cannot be assembly of more than 3 to 4 people. And on the morning of 13th also, these proclamations along with other officers of the city were made in the 19 points in the walled city. And only one proclamation was made outside the walled city. That's very important. That means only the people in the walled city knew that there is prohibition in the city.
There was no warning. The peaceful crowd could only hear Dyer commanding his men. Next moment, Jallianwala Bagh saw the most horrific massacre. Till date, these walls and the well stands witness to it, in its emptiness and even inquisitiveness of those who recall the massacre.
We cannot understand Jallianwala Bagh in isolation. It has to be seen in the context of the political developments in India at that time, and also what was happening in Punjab. In fact, Punjab was going through unprecedented changes. A lot had happened during the war in Punjab, especially when we see lots of soldiers. Around half of the soldiers which went for the First World War belonged to Punjab. They came back after the end of the war, and they were without work also, and they had hoped that once they would come back, there would be a lot for them. And secondly, there was inflation, unprecedented inflation. In fact, the prices of food grains had risen more than 2 times, because that's how I see that why people participated, who are the people who participated in these Rowlatt Satyagraha, and especially when those people are not political. Because what Rowlatt Act was going to affect, it was going to affect the political class, the conscious class. Otherwise, the participation of the people in large number, what we call the masses, people from the very lower strata of society, they have no clue of what Rowlatt Act is.
Grandfather told that he escaped by hiding himself under the stage. He was on the stage because Dr. Saifuddin Kitchlew and Dr. Satyapal, they were to preside that meeting, but they were arrested on the 10th of April actually.
Punjab, one of the most active regions of India in our struggle for independence, was facing a brutal crackdown by British law and order machinery. Days before the massacre at Jallianwala Bagh, Punjab's governor, Michael Dwyer, had imposed martial law in the province, meaning no more than 4 people were allowed to assemble or even seen at any public place.
Large number of ordinary people are participating in these meetings and in these hartals, though those hartals were totally peaceful, though whether it was the hartal on 30th of March or 6th of April. In fact, I would say that in Amritsar, activity had already begun since January, February of 1919, because the Indian National Congress was going to hold its annual session in December 1919 in Amritsar only. So since it was going to happen here, some activity of the Congress had already started, and these two leaders, Dr. Saifuddin Kitchlew and Dr. Satyapal, they were already organizing people.
And it was the passing of Rowlatt Act on 10th March 1919 which drew instant reaction from leaders of freedom movement. Indian leaders led by Mahatma Gandhi had strongly opposed the law and had even termed it a Black Act. The Congress leadership observed hartal in large swathe of country, opposing the Black Act. In Punjab, among the epicenters of the protests were Lahore and Amritsar. While the agitation was not at all that violent to begin with, it was the British response to quell even the peaceful of masses with utmost cruelty and even the imposition of the Act at will. Among the major instances of arbitrary British response was detention of Saifuddin Kitchlew and Dr. Satyapal on April 9. The two were instantly deported to Dharamshala. The detention of these two popular leaders led to a massive expression of protest by ordinary people at the Deputy Commissioner's office next day, April 10th. 20 Indian freedom fighters were said to have been killed in the firing by British forces to quell the protest.
Before that, a national hartal strike was announced by Gandhiji I think from 6th of April to 13th. It's going to be happened, and during those days, Ram Navami celebrations are also there. A procession was going on. In that procession, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, everyone had gathered here, and they were in the procession. And Hindus, they were taking water from the Muslim urns. There were two urns in which waters were kept there, that was Muslim pani and Hindu pani. Muslims were taking water from the Hindu urns and Hindus were taking water from the Muslim urn, which shows that their unity. And after seeing that, General Dyer also you can say that he has become mad, and he informed to his higher authorities that this unity will shake the Britishers or British government.
On 9th of April, when there was this Ram Navami procession, which was interestingly joined by the Muslims also. And there were lots of shoutings and slogans in which they said Saifuddin Kitchlew ki jai, Mahatma Gandhi ki jai, Satyapal ki jai, Hindu Muslim ki jai. This was something, and the Deputy Commissioner of Amritsar, Miles Irving, he saw it as if these people have come together, and at one place he finds or feels that they are rude and they are misbehaving. Though most of the report says the procession was very peaceful.
(1650) rounds were fired under Dyer's command. With no escape route and straight brick walls difficult to scale, many jumped inside the well. Several others died in the melee too. While the British had put the number of dead at 376, the Indian National Congress said the toll was about 1,000 unarmed and peaceful civilians. The government had embargoed reporting of the horrific massacre, but there were few who defied that writ.
The very next day, in fact, General Dyer takes the tour of the city and he tells them to open the shops. The first reaction of the government was that no news should go out. In fact, no newspaper was allowed to publish anything. The only person who dared to attempt to publish was the editor of Bombay Chronicle, B.G. Horniman, and we know he was deported to England on 19th of April.
Meanwhile, in Amritsar, which was cut off from the rest of India, the horror for the victims just kept piling up. Many spent entire day and night to look for the missing ones, most probably dead in the firing.
लोगों में मतलब terror was created and section 144 तो पहले ही लगा दिया गया था and even martial law was imposed. People couldn't even come here to collect their bodies even. And though one lady, Miss Ratan Devi, she came here to collect the dead body of her husband. She remained here for the whole night serving water to the injured persons.
As the incident began to generate outrage, reactions flew not just in Amritsar or India, but even in England. Rabindranath Tagore returned his knighthood, describing the incident as without parallel in the history of civilized governments. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's father, Janakinath Bose, renounced the title of Roy Chaudhary given to him by the British. Mahatma Gandhi started his non-cooperation movement soon afterwards. Motilal Nehru set all his European furniture and clothes on fire.
The reaction of Indian leadership, of course, was they were like stunned. And later on, when there was some questions were raised in the British Parliament, Churchill also spoke against it, and then this Hunter Committee was appointed to go into the disturbances during this period. And at the same time, Indian National Congress also appointed its own committee, which also visited all these cities where the disturbances had happened and recorded the evidence of the people. Hunter Committee also recorded the evidence of the people. And then Seva Samiti did a lot of work for collecting the evidence. But in the first 2.5 months, when there was till June, there was martial law, it was not possible for the leadership in Punjab to do much or do anything. It is only after the martial law was lifted that these committees were appointed which could do or collect the evidence or help the people out. But by the time, lot of time had passed.
Hunter Commission was set up by the British to probe the massacre. Often referred to as a butcher of Amritsar, Dyer was removed from the command and exiled to Britain. His recommendation for a CBE, an honorific title in Britain, was cancelled next year. He was also passed over for a promotion and was prohibited from serving in India in future. Dyer eventually died in 1927 after suffering a series of heart strokes. Till date, many believe the Hunter Commission was a mere eyewash, as Dyer had gotten away with murdering several hundreds of unarmed and innocent civilians.
अंग्रेज लोग ही ये कमीशन बिठाने वाले थे और फैसला भी वही देने वाले थे. उनको उम्मीद नहीं थी भी कोई न्याय मिलेगा, ये उम्मीद नहीं थी. व्हेन ही वाज कोर्ट मार्शल, अंडर कमेटी जो बैठी है, तो ही वाज नॉट गिवन एनी पनिशमेंट. ही वाज सिंपली सेंट बैक टू लंदन. कोई पनिशमेंट तो उसको दिया गया नहीं.
Indian National Congress leadership in the 1919 Amritsar session declared to buy the land and build a memorial. A counter to British plans to establish a cloth market on the spot at Jallianwala, where the blood of martyrs was spilled. Jallianwala Trust was hence established, with Sashti Charan Mukherjee its first secretary and Madan Mohan Malviya, a prominent Congress leader, its president.
Gandhi ji made an appeal for donation. Then my grandfather went door to door and he collected about 9 lakh 35,000 or 9 lakh something. And out of that, this Britishers, they want to make it a cloth market. They poked the owners. There were 34 owners of this land, and they poked them to raise the value of this land, and so that this committee can't purchase this. Or बाद में इसको they tell them that we will make a cloth market. You will get more money, and but the committee took the decision that we should purchase it at any cost, and then auction was held, and in that auction this barren land was finalized at 5.65 lakhs.
The massacre at Jallianwala Bagh changed the contours of our freedom movement and had left an indelible imprint. That a freedom was won with martyrdom such as this.
The way Indian National Congress looked at the things changed, because this is the time when the new reforms, what we call the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, had come in 1919. And a large number of leadership was thinking of accepting the reforms. But this changed. At least a larger number was now not in favor of accepting the reforms. So this was one big change which the Jallianwala Bagh massacre brought, because it suddenly made even the loyalists think that if this is what the British are going to do with us, then we will have to think twice.